The following program contains material that viewers may find unsuitable for younger children. A parental control system is advised. The following program contains opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed without any censorship and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised.
Hello, welcome to a brand new episode of TPS, the Public Square, the platform where you, the general public, get your questions answered and also address the timely concerns here in these volatile situations. Now, in today's discussion, we are going to dive into one of the most major revenue streams for us Sri Lankans, the export economy. Now, Sri Lanka is currently in an export development plan for the years 2026 to 2030, which they believe by the year 2030 we achieve export revenue of 36 billion US dollars. Now, joining me in today's discussion to give both sides of the conversation is representing the National People's Forum, Mr. Akalanga Senasinghe, and representing the Tamil Progressive Alliance, Mr. Bharat Arusami. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on today's program. So, I'll like to start with the governing party itself. Mr. Akalanga, now by 2030, 36 billion US dollars. Now, in last year, if you take the last year most recent data, Sri Lanka recorded 17.25 billion US dollars in export revenue. And now, if we want to achieve this target of 36 billion rupees by 2030, according to the mathematics, every year for 5 consecutive years, we have to grow by 15.8%. So I'd like to start with that point as to how your government found this plan feasible. What are the steps that have been currently underway? And I'll also give you the opportunity to give the current update of this plan.
Yeah, now, as you can see, so our ambition to achieve the target of 36 billion US dollars by 2030. So from this year, we are following the national, as you mentioned, we are following the National Export Development Plan, which is NEDP. And if we focus on the last year progress of our export income, as a country, we had achieved the most highest export income in all-time history, which is 17.25 billion. So we have to achieve less than 20 billion US dollars by, extra 20 billion US dollars by 2030. So most of the time, the last 40 years probably, we were, as a country, we were highly dependent on textiles and agriculture, and then the services. Now, from after perusing after the recovery and also perusing the data of last year, we can see that ICT, the IT field, and also the services, and also BPM services, and all these electronic components and those sector, the income of that sector has been increased than the tea exports, which is roughly 0.1 billion. So it has been surpasses the income of tea export, because there are various reasons that now we are, although we are, as a quality wise, we are the number 1 in the world, but still Kenya has been competed as now they are in a higher position.
In terms of tea, is this?
In terms of tea, I'm referring to only tea, that purpose. And also, strategically, we have to, we are now leaning to that. We should, we are planning to get out from the traditional exports, such as, not 100%, but we have to deviate from that while we are continuing with textiles and agriculture and apparels. We are focusing on IT services and electronic components, and also marine products, especially marine-based industries such as boat building ferry boats and also processed foods. So that sector, if you peruse the last time, the statistics of the last year, it is an increase of it is an increase of 5.6% comparison to the last year. So last year, the total income exporting earnings is US dollars 16.34.
I'm sorry to interrupt there, but I'd like to take a point from there. So 5.6% last year, as you mentioned,
increase,
a highest growth rate. Now to reach your target in 2030, a 15.8% growth is that's actually a significant margin between the two growth rates.
Yeah, I mean, we are trying our best to achieve that target or closer to that. So that's our ambition. So to working on that, we are focusing to develop the IT industry and also the other industries, which is not the apparels and we are continuously developing those sectors as well, but we are more focusing on IT and electronic components and also the marine sector to increase the especially to achieve this target. So if we follow the traditional, if we rely on the traditional exports, so we won't have a growth, that kind of growth. So because as you can see, comparing with 2024, we got
traditional exports. If you could be more specific on
yeah,
that.
if I specifically mention that the tea export and apparels, textiles,
tea, rubber, coconut is it?
Yeah, agricultural products and also the apparel and textiles. So those are for more than like 20-30 years we are depending on those export. That export market, and also as you can see, we are depending on the certain countries, especially in percentage wise, we share 22% share with United States.
Yes.
And also 8% India and United Kingdom is the third. They are holding the third position at 7%. So rest 70%, the other countries, we share our export market with Germany, Netherlands, Italy, China, Belgium, and so on. So we have to deviate from that export market as well. But before that, we are hoping to maintain, we are hoping to deviate our export market from the traditional export.
Thank you, Mr. Akalanga. Mr. Bharat, I'd like to move to you now. Just like I mentioned, 17.25 billion export revenue last year, and that's a 5.8% growth. Now, to reach the current target that they have proposed, we need a 15.8% growth consecutively for 5 years. Now, I'd like to, because we are still on the 2026, which is the initial year of this plan, so I think if you create the conversation, if there's any other opinions on this, I think still we are on a safe space to amend this journey. So I'd like to get your opinion on that feasibility of the plan.
Once again, thank you very much for having me here for TPS show today. And yet again, I always encounter some interesting topics in this program. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to express our views. First of all, we should understand we are in a situation how the global order is changing and how the regional influence is increasing. So to be very precise, we are in not a crisis, we are in a polycrisis. That means one after another, it will affect us. So we can, if we come across one crisis at this moment, there will be another crisis waiting for us, to warmly welcome us. So in this situation, the government has an ambitious target of having 36 billion export revenue. So this is where I see little bit odd here in the plan. We have a nice Benz car, nicely polished, and a beautiful car with a beautiful interior, but unfortunately we don't have an engine for that. That is the situation with this plan, because without a roadmap we can't achieve anything. But I really should commend the government. At least they have understood this export diversification of exports are very essential at this juncture. As you would have observed, as I told you, our generation have seen crisis after crisis, starting from tsunami, then the war, then COVID, then Easter attack, Sri Lankan crisis, then this economic crisis, everything we have gone through. So crisis is not an issue for us because we are already adopting that. So as I told you, since we are coming for a poly-crisis, the fundamental thing we should have an adaptability and diversity. So having said that, now export, my learned friend here, he pointed out and you also highlighted that our export revenue is high, but unfortunately in 2025 we were not able to achieve our 2025 export target. That is also admitted by the Treasury as well.
What we were, I think, close with
exactly.
more than 90%.
Yes, but we couldn't reach that. And on that perspective, I wanted to, place this into three verticals. What is the current status? And what are the challenges we are going to face? And what is our recommendation to this roadmap? So the current challenges now, as per the data, I think in comparing from 2023 to today, 2023 we had 11 billion. Then again 12.7 billion in 2024 and 25, as you said, nearly 17.25. Now up until March it's 7 billion, it's a rapid growth. But that is not because of we have an export strategy, that because of dollar depreciation. Because our rupee value is coming down, dollar value is coming down. When you deeply dive into the quantity over these dollars, there is a clear distinction. So we have to understand that fundamental. So I am not discouraging or commenting or criticizing this strategy. This is a much needed strategy at the moment. But the policies which is going to support this strategy is really vague and it's not incomplete. So before we have that roadmap, before we have that ambitious target, we have to settle all these things. We have to, actually assemble an engine for this Benz. So without that, we can't drive the vehicle. So my opening remarks would be, it's a good strategy, but our achievement has been very volatile. We have achieved all this export revenue not by an export strategy, but by this volatility of our forex market. And the government, the state minister himself has accepted, our dollar rates are very flexible. It's really insecure or not settled due to the international pressure. So we can't focus on an export market with a artificial dollar component or a market. So considering that, we have to think deeply before we develop the strategy.
Mr. Arusami, I'd like to move back to the past now. Export economy in Sri Lanka has been, I think, one of the most key revenue streams. So now this is a new export development plan. I'd like to give a minute and focus on where we staggered behind in the previous years and what are the learning outcomes we can take from those.
To be very honest, it's a very important question. See, I represent one of the community who had been continuously supporting the export economy of Sri Lanka, the tea sector, the plantation sector. But unfortunately, as my friend also pointed out, that has been drastically went down because of not modernization. We still practice the same old techniques. But when you compare a tea worker, he or she is not a normal labor. He's a skilled labor. When you compare a tea plucker, when he or she plucks that tea, nearly to achieve the daily target, her hand movement should go 12,000 times. That means it's a skill job, right? I'm not exaggerating anything, but what we have done to develop that skills, I'm not talking about elevating from poverty, providing social welfare. That is a separate story. We have to talk about that deeply. But I'm talking about in developing the industry on worker scale. Do we have a proper employment strategy or employment reform? No. Do we have
in the plantation sector?
Not only in the plantation sector, but also I'm talking about overall export industry and also SMEs. Do we have a proper tax net? Do we have a diverse SMEs? Do we support entrepreneurship? So these questions we have to I don't point finger at this government or any individual. This is what we were experiencing from the past. So here, yes, we do have a diversification. We have to work on since the world is moving towards the east, since using our geography, we have to take maximum out of that. But unfortunately, the preparedness is very, very minimal. I'll give a simple example. See, at the moment, the government basically based on a kind of a anti-corruption drive. That is very important. We are, as a party, as our party leader also expressed in many instances, we are supporting wholeheartedly for anti-corruption. That is the biggest disadvantage the Sri Lankan society and the Sri Lankan state had a problem. But unfortunately, that is not going to develop the economy of the country immediately. We must also have a business strategy. So, does the businesses grow? Now, I'll come back on this as VAT and all this VAT net and everything in sessions. But what I'm saying is, at the moment, just having a populist rhetoric is not going to help the country. The country must need a visionary ideas with the support of the entire system, whether we like it or not. Whether the government says the system is corrupted, I do see a lot of ministers and government representatives are blaming that, even though we wanted to do something, the government mechanism is not supporting that. Whether we like it or not, we need to accept the fact that and move on. So for that, we have to bring digitalization, modernization, use AI, and there are a lot of ways to do. So for that, before going to this export strategy, we have to identify all the gaps we do have. Now, I think, remember in the last interview we had, where we were both here, we talked about our digital economy. At that time, we were talking about the 2.5 million hacking happened in the treasury. So do we have this
safer
cyber security environment? So these are the important fundamentals we have to look into before diving into an export strategy.
I think that was a perfect note to move on to, Mr. Akalanka. Now, you all have a few key pillars, and I came across that digitizing this system and making sure the process is streamlined, specifically when it comes to managing with the clients and also testing and clearance, because I think that's somewhere we lag behind. Yeah. So all of these involve technology, and currently Sri Lanka's financial technology mainly has not been the most impressive thing. Yeah. So I'd like to get a small touch on that as to how we all are managing to tackle the digital side of things.
No, still we are working on that digitalization of government institutions. So and I mean, we had achieved a growth of the income, the export income currently, especially if you are considering the last year and this year. So I mean, to increase the income of the exports, especially, I mean, as I mentioned before, we are deviating from the traditional exports. And digitalization of the institution is a different issue.
Deviating means entirely keeping aside the traditional crops like tea, rubber, or is it just keeping that and mixing the other products?
There's a particular percentage for the exports of traditional exports rather than the textiles and the agricultural products. We are not neglecting those sectors while keeping it as let's say it's 25% out of the entire exports. So if we are keeping it in a certain level, and now we have a work plan to increase the other sectors such as electronics, ICT field, and also other services, and also marine services, and also
so while giving a significant attention to services along with merchandise exports, because if you take, there's a huge gap between merchandise and service exports.
Disregarding or discouraging those who are depending on traditional exports. we are giving a quality. I mean, we are trying to make it in a more. I mean, we are trying to put it in the next level. But while we are doing that, to achieve that target by the the export development plan, especially. So to achieve that target, we have to. Obviously, we have to deviate from the traditional exports. So up until now, as you can see, the electronic engineering components also, from out of that component, we have witnessed a growth of 30%, 31%, 83%. Nearly 32%. And also the processed foods I mentioned. The processed foods, we had the increase of 20%. And also processed foods, and also seafood, it has been done for 31%. So that increase, we have witnessed those increases as well. And also, the apparel textiles, there's a slight decline of 11%, but now there's an issue of apparels and textiles after the downfall of the economy, and once we were a bankrupt country in 2022. Also, we were hit by COVID also, before 5 years back. So that also hit the apparel textile field, but now it's growing. So those positive statistics are there. So we are working on, those statistics, and also overall there's a financial growth of 119%. So with those positive notes, we are hoping to go forward with the strategical plan. And as you can see, services has been increased up to 7.31%, especially within this year. And by and large, the increase of the export income, which is almost 7 billion.
Understood.
Within the first few months, that's up to June. So that is also a significant increase. So we are hoping to continue with that positive note.
Great, and that is it all the time we have for our first segment. So we'll head to a short commercial break. I do need to touch on a bit of a fiscal side of things along with what the country is going through right now. So we'll return after this short commercial break. You're watching TPS, the Public Square on Other Derana News Channel. Stay tuned. Welcome back to TPS, the Public Square on Other Derana News Channel. We were in discussion about Sri Lanka's one of the major revenue streams, which is the export economy. We dive into the newly proposed National Export Development Plan as to what areas can we target, where are we staggering behind, and what are the areas which are not feasible, and what are the feasible areas that we could capitalize on. Now, I'd like to move to the ruling party's side and ask more of a logical and a argumentative question here now. You all say that there have been competitors outside, for example, tea, there's Kenya, and now we see apparel exports also rising. Now, one thing that we have noticed is even Sri Lankan companies who have had their manufacturing bases here are moving out of the country now because of the rising cost, because as we all know, cost of living has increased, the electricity, starting from fuel to the daily life costs. So then the question arises that because of the country's position itself, our own people are moving out of the country and instead in their export bases elsewhere, and maybe the final buck comes to Sri Lanka, but then there are so much intermediaries which we could have taken directly to our country as well, which is actually foreign revenue, which is actually very important if we take about the dollar depreciation in recent times. So what are the steps taken to address that? Because I think before moving ahead and talking about approximately 16% growth each year, I think this current fuel crisis, electricity tariffs, I think those should be addressed, because that is a main factor that would demotivate the SMEs and also the large-scale exporters right here in the country.
Well, to be honest, now we have somewhat controlled the fuel prices. Inside the country, although still there's ongoing war, we were able to distribute the oil for the people, fuel for the people, and the petroleum. And yes, I'm agreeable with you that some essential foods and other products, the price is pretty much high. But those I mean, it happened because of the increase of the petrol, I mean, the fuel price generally. So that we have to gradually, we have to reduce that, and we have to see whether, because we are not an oil producing country, still we are planning to, I mean, there are oil tanks in Trincomalee. We are planning to repair those oil tanks and use those oil tanks as reserves, oil reserves. So we are in that process, in the beginning of that process, and now we are hoping to increase the export income. Export income by 2030, 36 billion. So that for that to reach that target, as I mentioned before, we can't depend highly depending on the traditional exports. I mean, for the textiles also, and also the agricultural products. But even I'm saying that there's an increase of especially the coconuts, and also the charcoal, those products also. Coconut charcoal also, comparing with the last year, that's an increase of exports. And also, as you can see, the knowledge services, there's an increase of 20% if you compare with the last year. And also the financial growth of financial services, there's an increase of 119% percentage-wise by mid of 2026 compared with the last year. So those positive notes are there. And you mentioned about the SMEs. So yes, we are hoping to initiate that the national strategic framework alongside with the Ministry of Digital Economy, especially to deploy in the SME export initiatives. So we have, as initial steps, we have started the growth fund, which is a dedicated state-backed financing pool. And also it has been designed to help out the SMEs, and also to secure the capital of trade, and also it tend to the export expansion as well. And also the other steps we had taken, which is a single window digital platforms. This is also to the SMEs, which amount to bypass the bureaucratic customs and the registration delays. So that also we had initiated. And also the targeted global integration. So the third step we have, which we have started, we have looking on, and we have just started it. Especially we have partnering with the international bodies such as the International Trade Sri Lankan Hub, and also to give knowledge to the small businesses, especially the agri-food and textile business. So those initial steps we have taken up until now.
In terms of the growth, if we take now, even though we are telling that around 16% is required every year, how are the years going to work? Because if we look at it in a practical way, 2026 and then 2027 would be a bit of a different number. So what are your targets year by year?
Well, we are planning to give tax reductions, especially in the IT sector. We are planning to do that. But because of some environmental issues and hitbacks from Middle East war, and also we are still, don't forget that still we are with the IMF plan. So we can't, as a country, we can't continue a plan with arbitrariness and with our own will. So we have to negotiate with IMF also.
Is there a certain obstacle from
the tax
IMF?
reduction also we had negotiated with IMF, and we had to decide.
So is there not an obstacle, but is there a certain restriction because of the IMF
we have to go
reforms
with that restrictions as well? So that also a concern. But we are now, as you can see with the statistics, the tea export income has been declined comparing with the electronic products and also ICT. So that has been climbed up as a second export income, sector rather.
But how, if you're
just
talking about
behind the
ICT,
apparel and textiles.
but if you take a sector like ICT, I think our neighbor India is actually in a very leading position. So then again, don't we have a competitive problem there? Just like you mentioned now, tea in Kenya and IT in India has been instated long time ago. So don't you think maybe running behind that product would actually end up being a waste at the end?
No, we are not only running behind that one particular sector, but we have seen that it has been increased comparison with the last year, and it's override the tea exportation. So we are encouraging we are hoping to give tax reliefs to the agricultural products in near future. And while we are doing that, don't forget that there's increase of gem and jewelry and also processed foods and seafoods. And that also we are hoping to give tax reduction on those products as well. And while we are doing that, our main aim to increase ICT based service products, service sector to generate income out of that. So that's how we can achieve, at least we can go to near to that target that we are expecting to achieve in 2030. So that's how we are planning to.
Thank you, Mr. Senasinghe. Mr. Bharat, now I'd like to move to you now. Definitely, there's been so much criticism, I would say, in terms of the current export plan as well, telling that it lacks few, the feasible plans. So, looking at the current thing, if you look at the government, if you put the government shoes on, they have the IMF, which is pressuring them to maintain a certain amount of policies from that side. And then the global crisis is putting another set of pressure on them. And just like you said, it's volatile. If one problem ends, another awaits. So in a situation, in an atmosphere like that, how do you think that we can navigate this export plan to reach that target? Because if you check, like I mentioned before, I also need opinion on this as well, because people inside our country, just for the ease that they can produce the same product to a lesser cost, they are moving outside the country, which actually results in a direct revenue coming through a certain way, and actually we might not actually receive the entire revenue we could have. So I'd like to get your opinion on that.
I just wanted to harp on the fact that this IMF assistance. See, even though our growth rate should be somewhere 8% to 9%, IMF itself has brought down it to 3%. So that means that our business plan is not the way we expected. That we have to agree. Second, to answer your question precisely, I would like to just touch our history a little bit medieval history. The reason we have to touch the history to learn from the past, understand the present, and plan the future. So when our kings and the rulers who ruled this country had one big opportunity is our geography, because Sri Lanka was not just an island nation, it is a trading nation at that time. That is the very reason we were, ruled by many kings. We were tried to invade us by empires, and we were colonized by 3 colonies. So keep this in mind. Unless otherwise we build Sri Lanka as a global enterprise hub, we can't think about export strategy. Tell me now, at least past couple of almost now 2 years, what is the major investment has come to Sri Lanka? Nothing. I think RM Park, that shell has come in the latter stage when Ranil Wickremesinghe was in his tenure. Other than that, we don't have a mass investment coming in. So without investment strategy, talking about export strategy is a little bit a problem. And also we talked about, as I mentioned about this IMF target has come down. And also think about our revenue, as I told you, our figures are very, very attractive because according to IMF, the statistics should be very precise. So our growth rate is somewhere, export growth rate is somewhere 17 to 18%. And also see the FX, foreign exchange, right? That is falling by 7 to 8%. So it is a mechanical balancing rather than a kind of a market-oriented economy. So now past 3 years, the central bank and the treasury is keeping this what we call dollar in a temporary crisis measure. So as a result, even an importer or SME or exporter, whoever involved in this supply chain can't predict their businesses. That is the very reason you correctly pointed out. Many business entities are leaving Sri Lanka and making Sri Lankan business in as a hub in Dubai, India, Singapore, or even in Bangladesh. So this is a very serious problem. As I told you, the East is growing so fast. Let it be Vietnam, let it be Indonesia, let it be Korea, South Korea. So these countries are rapid growth is happening, and the economic shift is now towards the Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean. So are we going to use that opportunity? Once again, I am harping on the fact that politics is different from governance. When this government came doing politics, that is really acceptable because in the politics everything is fair, right? Like in war, everything is fair. Likewise, when up until they come into power, they had a lot of narratives. People accepted it, gave them a clear mandate, not like a half mandate, clear mandate with a 2/3 majority. Now, they should have a governance structure, not political structure. Now, there is an ongoing Gulf problem. Like, see, there is a Middle East crisis. So, most of the businesses, most of the high net worth individuals thought Dubai and Middle East will be the safe haven. But unfortunately, it is now little bit shaken. This is a very good opportunity for us to use Mattala, for us to use Hambantota, for us to develop Katunayaka, for us to develop the northern part with our neighboring countries. This is an opportunity. But the government earlier had a rhetoric against everything. Against everything. Like now, say, let's talk about IMF. Earlier, they had issues with IMF.
Earlier, as in before they came into power?
Earlier in the sense, I'm sorry. Earlier in the sense, before their power. That's what I clearly distinguished politics and governance. There is a clear distinction between that. So, here, this, if they, now for an example, we have a beautiful law called economic transformation, which the same NPP government went into the courts, they objected this on it's violating the constitution. So when you go to the grounds of that, they said this export economy and subsidizing import is a problem, it's unconstitutional. So in that narrative, this government should come out. So like we as an opposition, now for an example, I don't speak on behalf of the other oppositions, but we as Tamil Progressive Alliance, as a progressive party, we always support the government in initiative which is going to develop the country. Even though we largely represent our community, we are Sri Lankans first. So when Sri Lanka grows, all communities will grow. So that is the very reason I really wanted to put it forward. This strategy does not cater the needs of the people. Like we, on books, on statistics, on World Bank report, Central Bank report, Treasury, even in budget, it will be very, very lucrative document. When it comes to ground, I am a ground level person. More than statistics, I trust the emotion of the people. If you go to a normal kade and ask how is the business going, you just walk into a shop and ask the business owner or any shop owner, how is the business going? There is no businesses, there are high taxes, so there is no sales. This is, and the families who are enjoying 3 meals a day, now they have limited 2 meals a day, and also that now, but in one various sector is nourishing and developing. So this cannot be a a kind of a propaganda of the government. No. So that is the very big disadvantage we do have. Let's forget about all this political rhetoric we had earlier. The government should come forward to think with a political vision, with a political will. If that is not there, it's very difficult. One important thing I was in this export economy, I just wanted to highlight. Now about this exporter. Exporter, earlier he was covered with SWAT, but now risk-based refund is mandatory. So I by myself an exporter. So now an exporter has to pay the advance the VAT and wait for more than 45-50 days to get that capital. So how an exporter will wait for getting stuck with their capital, working capital? So these are the very important issues the government should consider. They should also stabilizing the macro economy. They should also think about the microeconomy, SME, entrepreneurship, startups, everything should be there. Now we are talking about ICT. Do we have an ICT structure? We do have some training institutes, but we are not comprehend, as you correctly mentioned, the competitive markets. So these are the fundamentals. We have to think very widely, and we have to have a roadmap to achieve this strategy. As I told you, there is a nice car parked there without an engine. So the president, as a finance minister, take a very firm call on this.
Thank you, Mr. Atusami. And with that, we are coming to the end of our second segment. So we'll be back. We have one more segment remaining. We do need to touch on some important areas. So stay tuned. You're watching TPS, the Public Square, on Other Derana News channel. We'll be back right after this short commercial break. Welcome back to TPS, the Public Square, on Other Derana News channel. We are in our final segment for today. We are talking about the export economy of Sri Lanka, mainly based on the National Export Development Plan for the 2 years 2026 to 2030. Now, we are in our final minutes, so gentlemen, I'd like to move to the final comments. I'd like to get from you, Mr. Akalanga, first. Now, just a small question before we move to the final answers. You talked about diversification. Now, as you said, our major export economy market is in the US. Now, US, we are currently going through a tariff problem, and this has been something that we are discussed in the program as well. So in terms of diversification, I think it's high good time that you all have come to some solid decisions. So if you could tell me what areas, what countries perhaps, that you are targeting in this new plan.
Yeah, now you can see, Sri Lanka as a country is heavily depending on US and EU. Especially if you are figuring out the overall exports. So we should maintain obviously we should maintain the Western market dominance continuously in future. But while we are doing that, we have to focus on the fast growing Asian markets as well. There are fast growing nations in South Asia, and also other Asian countries rather, Vietnam and other, Singapore, and there are other fast-growing nations. And we should, I'm not saying that we have to move out from that, while we have to expand our export market. So we should see whether we can capitalize the South Asia, the consumer market.
In terms of the lacking a structured plan, do you have any answer to give to that? Before we hit the break, he was mentioning that there's a nice opportunity in front of us, but then is there actual structured plan to achieve this target?
Actually, now, to be honest, now we are starting that, because still we are in the early, 6 months of our strategic plan. So we are now leaning from this, the traditional export to ICT and the other products and also the services. So while we are focusing that, we should, we must, not deviation, rather than we have to expand our market, not limiting ourselves to US and EU. We should expand it up to the, up to fast-growing Asian nations rather. And also we should maximize the FTAs, the free trade agreements also. So we have to focus on that also as a country. And also we should focus on exporting technological goods and marine craftsmanship. So I mentioned before.
Like you mentioned. Yes.
Yeah. So we have to deviate from the traditional markets.
Understood.
Simple as that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bharat, final minutes. So in terms of, I'd like to ask, in terms of diversification now, as Sri Lanka seems to be depending on the US in terms of special apparel exports and other export materials. So again, another volatile market with the way things are going. So what do you see the best opportunities for us to target, to build relationships with, and also your final remarks on?
First and foremost, does Sri Lanka need an export strategy? That is a very fundamental question. I would say, and I would argue, rather have an export strategy, we have to have an export implementation plan. Export implementation plan. First, we have to, have a clear plan on implementing what we have in papers. That is one. Since you asked about American markets and Western markets, we need to develop more than multilateral trade agreements. We have to have bilateral trade agreements. That is the way forward. We have to learn from India how they are having a free trade agreement with the UK and how they are developing a very strong relationship with the EU. I recently would have known that they signed an free trade agreement with mother of all deals. And also they are balancing US because they are the highest purchasing power, and they are balancing the Eastern market also. Sri Lanka should have a policy, like I always emphasize, this was told by Narasimha Rao also then in India, like look east policy. So Sri Lanka should have look east policy. I understand now Sri Lanka has made attempts to get into RCEP. I wrote an article about RCEP also, because RCEP is, we are entering into global giant, manufacturing giant. So we send goods, we receive goods. So if we don't have an infrastructure to send goods, a production based, we will obviously we will become a dump area, because it will be a market area. Then we will not have a competitive market in future. That is one. And also we had that rhetoric, this India's relationship. India is almost a growing economy. In 10 years, it will be one of the superpower economy, and we should not have any suspicions that growing with India will make us vulnerable. And whatever way we can connect, whether it's through land, whether it's through energy, whether it's through pipeline, we should connect with India, make this geography as feasible as our medieval stages to earlier stages, how Sri Lanka grown so far. And one important thing, since my friend talked about FTAs, we should explore and finalize the ETCA agreements. And President had signed various MOUs with India, I think China and Vietnam, wherever he went, he signed MOUs. We don't see any practical implementations. And also, and before we have to go into RCEP, we have to finish what we started, like Singapore FTA, Thailand FTA. These should be materialized and focused. So finally, efficient customs, predictable tax incomes, and digitalized systems, and also market-oriented economy is very important to develop export strategy. If the startups and exporters are not feeling of doing ease of business is very important for any investor or a startup or an exporter to pitch to the world market. So business is not in the books, business in the trade. So I think through this program, I convey this message to the government and all the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arusami, and unfortunately we are coming to the end of the time we have today, so I'd like to take this to thank Mr. Akalanga Senasinghe joining us from the National People's Power. Thank you so much. And also Mr. Bharat Arusami representing the Tamil Progressive Alliance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching TPS, the Public Square on Other Derana News channel. We'll return next week with a topic just like this, which is valuable for you, the general public. Same time, same place next week. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.
She's gone in the flash of her life. I never was looking. I'll be looking for the rest of my life. We took a Polaroid. You signed your name upon it. I put it in my wallet, hoping I'd see your face again. We took a Polaroid, captured the look in your eyes. It's only a matter of time before it starts fading. I could have swore I saw someone like you. 1,000 people at the station. And the second you slipped out